Heartwarming moment, millionaire discovers homeless black girl and her sick daughter. You won't believe what happens next. Mark Thompson, a millionaire entrepreneur, strode confidently through the bustling streets of downtown Chicago, dressed in a sharp suit that epitomized success. A charity gala awaited him, an event designed to showcase his philanthropic efforts and charm the city's elite. But beneath the surface of his well-polished persona, a weight gnawed at him, a feeling of emptiness he couldn't quite shake. The city buzzed with life, but he was trapped inside a corporate bubble, oblivious to the world around him until a moment shattered his blissful ignorance. As he made his way past towering buildings and luxury boutiques, Mark's gaze caught a heartbreaking sight: a young black girl named Mia, no older than 10, huddled on the sidewalk, wrapped in a tattered blanket. She clutched a small, sickly toddler, Leah, whose frail body trembled against the biting cold. Time slowed as Mark's heart thudded in his chest. This grim tableau struck a chord deep within him, yanking him from his complacent routine. Mia's vulnerable, yet defiant eyes met his. It was a look that shattered all the happiness he'd found in wealth, dragging him back to his own childhood in a working-class neighborhood where every penny counted. The values of hard work and integrity taught by his parents felt like a distant echo, and here he stood, trapped between two worlds. Would he walk away, retreating to the comfort of his privilege, or extend a sincere helping hand? Mark inhaled sharply, memories flooding back: the sacrifices his parents made, the wise words they shared. Before he knew it, he was sitting beside Mia, breaking his ice-cold pizza in half, their fingers brushing as he offered her a piece. Together they shared stories, her voice a melody of hardship tempered by an unyielding hope. Mia spoke of cold nights, of dreams for Leah that seemed just out of reach, and in that moment, Mark felt warmth seep into the cracks of his heart. Yet, as his upscale peers caught wind of his uncharacteristic compassion, whispers of skepticism shadowed him. Was he risking his reputation? Were they right to scoff at his newfound mission? For Mark, the choice now loomed larger. As he began to mobilize support around Mia's plight, educating his social circle about the harsh realities faced by families like hers, he unearthed a fire within him he never knew existed. Mark faced furious backlash. The elite community he once called home took threats at his actions, his bravery met with derision. Just as he was finding purpose, standing up for Mia and Leah, the self-doubt crept in. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Mark prepared for a pivotal community meeting to share Mia's story and confront injustice, an unexpected betrayal threatened to unravel everything he'd built. The question now loomed larger than ever: how far would he go to redefine his perception of success? With the weight of his past and future hanging in balance, Mark stood at the edge of something profound, a transformation that would shake the foundations of his life. Would he rise to the occasion or crumble under the weight of his privilege? As the day of the community meeting arrived, anxiety twisted in Mark's stomach. He couldn't shake the weight of the doubts that had surfaced in the wake of criticism. What if the people he hoped to inspire turned against him? What if Mia and Leah didn't find the support they so desperately needed? He had prepared a speech, practicing his words in front of the mirror for hours, but now they felt hollow. After arriving at the neighborhood community center, he was met with an audience that seemed poised, curious yet unsure. The walls were painted bright colors, a stark contrast to the bittersweet reality outside. Folding chairs formed a circle, and folks showed up for the same reason: to make a difference. But as he stood at the front, all he could hear was the unsettling whisper of doubt in his mind. Mia and Leah sat among the crowd. Mia's eyes were wide with hope, Leah clinging to her side with a small stuffed bear. Their presence grounded him. They were the emotional core of this gathering, and he had to speak up for them. Just as he opened his mouth to begin, the door swung open, and his biggest critic, Richard, stormed in. Richard was a former mentor, a titan in the business world, and he had never been shy about his disdain for Mark's current mission. "Mark, you're throwing away your career." Richard's voice boomed, echoing off the walls. "This isn't how you build an empire. You're getting soft." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark's fists clenched, anger bubbled beneath the surface, but he forced himself to remain calm. "This isn't about building empires, Richard, it's about saving lives. Mia and Leah deserve a chance." Richard stepped forward, arms crossed smugly. "You'll ruin yourself. You think one good deed cleanses years of prosperity built on serious decisions? This isn't a charity case, it's business." The tension in the room thickened, eyes darting between the two men. It felt like a wrestling match, and Mark was caught on the ropes. But then he thought of Mia, her courage, her incredible spirit despite the crushing weight of her circumstances. He opened his mouth again, his voice steady. "No one is a business case, especially not Mia and Leah. The truth is, wealth doesn't mean anything if it doesn't help others rise up with you." A murmur of approval washed over the crowd. The energy shifted. Mark's heart beat faster. He took a breath and began to share their story, Mia's story, the harsh nights on the streets, the hopes and dreams that danced just out of reach like the starlight. Each heartfelt word poured out of him, igniting the emotions haunting the room. As he spoke, he glanced at Mia. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she smiled. Leah held tight to her bear, staring up at Mark with wide eyes, soaking it all in. Suddenly, he felt a swell of strength he hadn't anticipated. He wasn't just advocating for them, he was rallying a community. People began to nod, sharing their own stories of struggle, reaching out with thoughts of support. The atmosphere shifted from skepticism to solidarity. Inspired, Mark continued, urging everyone to focus on action, to come together for Mia and Leah, not just as individuals but as a unified force against hardship. As the meeting drew to a close, he felt lighter, freer even, but just as relief washed over him, Richard interrupted again, a sly grin on his face that made his skin crawl. "Let us see how long you can keep this up once you've lost everything you've built." The comment delivered a blow. Doubts crept in again, but as Mark locked eyes with Mia, he knew he couldn't back down now. His heart raced with determination. He had crossed a line, and there would be no going back. What awaited him next? Would Richard's threats be mere words, or would they indeed jeopardize everything he now stood for? As the applause settled, Mark prepared himself for the storm that was sure to come. How far would he really go for Mia and Leah? What consequences would his choice invite? The answers loomed ahead, inviting him to the brink of a fierce battle, a challenge that could change everything. Mark stepped off the small stage, the applause still echoing in his ears, but the warmth of the moment was quickly overshadowed by Richard's taunting words. The laughter and smiles of the community felt like a thin layer of ice over a turbulent sea. His heart sank as he faced the reality of what was at stake. Mia approached him first, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "You were amazing, Mark," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Leah squeezed her stuffed bear tighter, looking up at him with wide, trusting eyes. He could see the hope they had pinned on him, but Richard's threat loomed like a storm cloud overhead. "I want to help. I want to do more for you both," Mark said, fighting against the gnawing anxiety that had crept back into his chest. Mia nodded earnestly, a small smile breaking through her tears. "I know you will. We believe in you." That simple declaration made his heart swell. But beneath that, doubt whispered again. Could he truly be the change they needed? Richard stood off to the side, arms crossed, an unsettling smirk plastered on his face. Mark caught sight of him, and the anger flared once more. Was he really willing to risk everything, even if it meant placing his life and businesses in jeopardy? Mark shrugged off the thought. He had to put Mia and Leah first. He couldn't let Richard win, not like this. He gathered a few community members as they stepped forward to share what they wanted to do for Mia and Leah. One woman, a local teacher named Sarah, volunteered to organize a fundraiser, raising her hand excitedly. "We can get the local businesses involved. Maybe we can even find a place that can provide them with a steady home." Another nodded, enthusiasm shining in his eyes. "I've got some contacts at the local shelter. We can figure something out. The community can come together." Each idea, each supportive voice was a breath of fresh air. The energy lifted him again, and he found his footing. As plans started to form, Mark made it a priority to rally behind every voice. They would create a network of support. But deep down, suspicion about how Richard would retaliate kept him on edge. The risk of failure suddenly felt like a dark shadow creeping behind him, taunting him, reminding him of his past. When the meeting wound down, people lingered, sharing ideas and tapping their phones to put plans in motion. Mia and Leah stayed close, soaking in the growing sense of community. Mark felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was just the beginning. But as he took a step towards the door, Richard approached him again, this time dropping his bravado. "I'd advise you to think this through, Mark," he said quietly, his tone shifting. "You can't help everyone without risking everything." Mark stood tall, a fierce determination settling in his chest. "I can help those who deserve it. You might see them as a threat to your empire, but I see Mia and Leah as the heart of this community. And I'm not turning my back on them." Richard's eyes narrowed, but a flicker of something recognition, perhaps passed between them. As the two men faced off, somewhere deep within, Mark felt the gears turning. Consequences were inevitable, but could he outmaneuver his old mentor? Head full of thoughts, he turned away and headed outside into the sunlight. The warmth enveloped him, a stark contrast to the shadows marked by Richard's words. He knew this was far from over. Mia and Leah deserved a chance, and he would fight for it. But now, his mind was racing. What would Richard do next? Would he come after Mark's businesses? His reputation? The questions hung in the air like a tense string waiting to snap. With determination set in his heart, he took the first step into an uncertain future, ready to face whatever came his way. What lines would he have to cross next to protect Mia and Leah? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the town as Mark drove home. The weight of Richard's words lingered in his mind, a haunting echo that refused to fade. He should have felt victorious after the support had flooded in, but doubt had crept in like an uninvited guest. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his knuckles white under the strain. When he pulled into the driveway, he noticed the mailbox overflowing with letters and flyers. Amidst the chaos, one envelope stood out, handwritten and marked with Mia's distinctive scrawl. Curiosity sparked, he quickly tore it open. Inside, he found a short note. "Dear Mark, thank you for believing in us. You make me feel safe. I hope everything is okay with you." A lump formed in his throat. Mia's words were a balm for his troubled heart. They were what he needed to keep pushing forward, to stand tall against whatever was to come. He walked inside, greeted by the familiar scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen. His sister, Jenna, was there, her brow furrowed in concentration as she flipped through the mail. "Any good news today?" she asked, glancing up at him with a knowing smile. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated." "Complicated usually means trouble or an opportunity," she teased lightly, nudging him with her elbow. But the humor didn't reach her eyes. Jenna had always been his anchor, sensing when the weight of the world pressed down on him. "Richard's not going away. He has a vendetta, and I feel like I'm standing on a tightrope," Mark confessed, his voice heavy with fatigue. He knew that revealing too much would only worry her, but keeping it all inside didn't feel right either. "Have you thought about what you'll do next?" she asked, tilting her head as she poured him a cup of coffee. "Yeah," he said, meeting her gaze. Their SA fundraiser next weekend. We're hoping to gather a lot of resources to help Mia and Leah. Sounds like a good start. But you can't face Richard alone, Mark. You need allies who are not afraid to stand up to him. Mark nodded, but the thought of gathering a team felt daunting. He was scared of putting others at risk. Would they end up suffering for his choices? Just then, his phone buzzed on the counter, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a text from Mia. "Mark, can we talk? I have something important to tell you." His heart quickened. What could it be? Was she all right? He quickly typed back. Of course. When and where? Tomorrow at the park, around 1 p.m. He felt a rush of relief wash over him. They needed to connect deeper, but the unease came creeping back. What was so important that she needed to tell him in person? After dinner, Mark couldn't shake his apprehension. He kept picturing what life would be like for Mia and Leah, dealing with Richard's wrath if things escalated. Was he doing enough? He resolved to call a few trusted friends for backup at the fundraiser and further discuss the potential response to Richard. The night felt long, filled with dreams tainted by shadows of Richard's looming threats and the faces of Mia and Leah drifting in and out of clarity. When morning broke, he was restless. The day ahead felt heavy with uncertainty. As he headed to the park, he replayed every interaction with Mia in his mind. Would she share something that would change everything? When Mark finally reached the park, the vibrant colors around him contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside. He spotted Mia sitting on a bench, her eyes gazing towards the ground. Taking a deep breath, he approached her. "Hey, Mia. You okay?" She lifted her head, and for a moment, the weight of her silence hung in the air. "There's something you need to know about Leah." Mark's breath caught in his throat. What was this secret? Would it complicate everything further? His heart raced. Whatever was coming next, he wasn't sure he was ready for it. Mia's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the noise of Mark's thoughts like a knife. "Leah, she's sick, Mark. Not just sick like you get a cold. It's serious." Mark sat down beside her, instinctively drawing closer. "What do you mean?" His pulse pounded in his ears. The sunlight that warmed the park felt irrelevant now, eclipsed by the weight of her words. "She has a condition, a rare one. We've been trying to manage it without drawing attention. I didn't want you to worry." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and Mark's heart shattered at the sight. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You should have told me sooner. We could have figured something out together." "I know, but I didn't want to burden you. You have enough on your plate with Richard and everything." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "But it's getting worse, and I don't know how long we can keep it a secret. She needs treatment, and it's expensive." Panic bubbled inside him. "We can do a fundraiser, like you mentioned. People will help if they know what is going on. We can raise the money." Mia shook her head, her expression shifting from sorrowful to resolute. "It's not just about money. Richard has friends everywhere. If he finds out about Leah's illness, he might use it against us. If he knows what we're vulnerable over." Mark felt a chill race down his spine. He could picture Richard's face, filled with that chilling smirk, ready to exploit their every weakness. "Then we defend Leah. We fight back through this together." Mia's eyes softened for just a moment, that hint of hope he always admired flickering at the edge. "You really think we can? You're already fighting battles, Mark." "I didn't want to add to that. Leah is already part of this fight. We will figure out how to make it work. You're not alone, Mia. You and Leah matter. To me, to everyone." That feeling of determination swelled in him, chasing away the tightening dread. He pulled his phone from his pocket, ready to call the friends he'd been hesitating to involve. "Let's get everyone in. The more, the better." Mia looked at him, a mix of gratitude and trepidation in her eyes. What if Richard catches wind of this? We don't let fear rule us, he answered firmly. It's time to go on the offensive. But as he scrolled through his contacts, doubt knotted deep within him. Could he really protect them? The fundraising idea seemed like a beacon of hope, yet Richard lurked like a shadow over them, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. Mia, he said, capturing her attention again. What if we can find some way to keep Leah's condition private while we figure this out? Maybe we can hint about a different family needing help? Something less revealing? She considered it, that familiar spark of cleverness lit in her gaze. I could reach out to a few community groups, see if anyone can help us get resources without revealing Leah's story yet. It could buy us some time. Exactly. We don't let him win, not like this. Yet, as they began to strategize, there remained an insidious gnawing at the back of Mark's mind. No plan seemed foolproof when it came to Richard. Suddenly, Mia's phone buzzed, pulling her attention away. She glanced at the screen, her face going pale. "Oh no, it's Richard," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. "Don't answer it." "Just ignore." Mark started, but fear squeezed his chest. What if he knows? Mia bit her lip, glancing around as if expecting him to emerge from the trees. "Then we're ready," he said, adrenaline surging through him like fire. "Whatever he's planning, we'll handle it." But as Mark looked into Mia's frightened eyes, a doubt crept back in. Was he really ready for everything that was about to unfold? The world around him faded as Mia's expression wrestled with hope and despair. They had to act quickly. But what if they couldn't keep Leah safe? The ambulance sirens began wailing in the distance, a reminder that time was of the essence. He had to act now. Mark reached for Mia's hand once more, grounding them in the unfolding chaos. "We'll do this together, no matter what." Just as he finished, his phone buzzed again. Another message. But this one didn't feel right at all. The screen lit up with one word: help. His stomach dropped. Who was this from? And more importantly, what did this mean for Leah and Mia? Would they have to face Richard sooner than they anticipated? Mark's heart raced as he stared at the one-word message on his screen. It felt as though the air around him had thickened with urgency. He turned to Mia, who was still frozen in fear, her gaze darting from side to side, as if Richard himself was lurking nearby. He could feel her apprehension, her world teetering on the edge of despair. "Who is it from?" Mia asked, her voice barely a whisper, but full of determination. I don't know. It just says help," he replied, fumbling with his phone, trying to search for any clues. Mia leaned in closer, her breath quickening. "Maybe it's from someone in the community? Someone who knows about Leah?" "Maybe," he said, the doubt stabbing at him. He couldn't shake the fear that it might be Richard playing mind games, setting the stage for yet another cruel twist in their already tangled lives. As he toggled through messages, a knot formed in his stomach. What if this is a trap? What if he is trying to lead us away from Leah? What if Mark? Mia interrupted, her voice sharpening slightly. "We can't let fear paralyze us. We need to find out who sent this and what they want." He nodded, realizing she was right. He looked down, steadying his thoughts. "Okay. I'll text back," he said, fingers moving over the screen with a new sense of purpose. He typed, "Who is this? What do you need help with?" and hit send. The minutes that followed felt like hours. The world around them blurred in weighty silence, the sirens in the distance underscoring the anxiety that wrapped around them. Mark caught himself glancing at Mia, her brow furrowed, an echo of his own dread painted across her features. Finally, his phone pinged. His heart jumped as he read the response, "I know about Leah. Please meet me at the cafe on 6th. Mia's eyes widened in surprise. "Mark, do you think it's true?" "I don't know," he said, his mind racing. But we need to go. If they have information about Leah, we can't lose that chance. Mia took a deep breath, nodding slowly. Okay, but we need to be careful. Richard could find out, or he could already know, Mark interrupted, his voice firm. We have to stay focused and get there. If this person knows something, it could change everything. They stood up together, the grass crunching beneath them as they prepared to head to the cafe. But a flicker of doubt pulsed through him. What if this was a distraction? What if it was one of Richard's games to throw them off course? Mark, Mia said, breaking his spiraling thoughts. No matter what happens, we'll face it together, right? Always, he promised, warmth flooding his chest. As they made their way down the path, their resolve steeled against the weight pressing on them. When they reached the cafe, it was bustling with customers, the aroma of coffee filling the air, but none of that mattered. They barely noticed the chatter, their eyes scanning for the mystery messenger. Maybe we should sit in the corner, Mark suggested, seeking a spot where they could see the entrance without being in the open. Mia nodded, the tension evident in her posture. They found a small table by the window and slid into the seats, the sunlight streaming in but unable to warm the chill of uncertainty hanging over them. Minutes ticked by as they waited, both of them lost in their thoughts, until the door swung open. A figure stood silhouetted against the daylight. Mark felt his breath hitch as a young woman, maybe in her late 20s, stepped inside. Her anxious eyes scanned the room before locking onto theirs. Is that her? Mia whispered, gripping the edge of the table. As the woman made her way toward them, Mark swallowed hard, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. The woman approached cautiously, glancing over her shoulder like she was afraid someone was following her. Hello, she said softly, her voice trembling as she reached their table. Are you Mark and Mia? Yeah, that's us, Mark replied, trying to keep his voice steady. What do you know about Leah? The woman took a deep breath, her expression shifting from fearful to determined. I've seen her and I can help. But we need to talk somewhere private. Mark and Mia exchanged glances, their hearts racing. What was about to unfold? Okay, Mark said, standing up but feeling a rush of adrenaline surge through him. Let us go. But just as they turned to leave, the bell above the cafe door jingled ominously, and Mark froze. In walked Richard, his familiar smirk cutting across the tension like a knife. Thought you could leave without saying hello? He drawled, eyes narrowing. Mark felt dread wash over him. This was not just a meeting anymore. It was a chase, and now they had to decide how to move forward against the tidal wave of danger poised to crash over them. What could they do now? The air was thick with tension as Richard strolled toward their table, his presence commanding attention. Mark's heart raced, each beat echoing the panic surging through him. He grabbed Mia's wrist, trying to figure out their next move as Richard closed the distance, a predatory glint in his eye. How nice to see you both, Richard said, feigning casualness. Planning a little getaway without me? Something like that, Mia shot back defiantly, her chin lifted, but Mark could see the fear flickering behind her bravado. Richard leaned closer, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret. You really think you can just waltz out of here? That you can meet up with mystery people and expect it to be all sunshine and rainbows? Mark swallowed hard. He had to protect Mia. We don't need your permission, Richard. Just stay out of our way. Richard laughed, a chilling sound that made Mark's skin crawl. You don't get it, do you? You're in way over your heads. Before Mark could reply, the young woman stepped between them, her voice firm yet trembling. You need to leave them alone, Richard. He turned, surprised by her intervention. And who are you? I'm someone who knows the truth about Leah and Richard. If you really care about her, you'll let them go. The air grew heavier, the cafe's ambience fading into the background as Mark and Mia stared at the woman in shock. Truth? Richard sneered. Funny coming from a stranger. You have no idea what you're talking about. Actually, I do, she shot back, her spine straightening as she faced him. I know where Leah is. Mark felt a surge of hope, but Richard's face morphed into something darker. You think you can just throw those words around? That you have something I want? The woman's eyes flicked back to Mark, desperate yet determined. We need to go. Now. Mark felt Mia squeeze his hand. They couldn't let Richard dictate their lives any longer. I'm done listening to your threats, Richard. You won't control my life. Really, Mark? Richard's expression shifted to a sinister gleam. You think you can just walk away? I have eyes everywhere. You'd be surprised what I know. What do you mean? Mia asked, panic creeping into her voice. But Richard simply smirked, taking a step back. Let us say you'll regret crossing me. You're in a danger you can't even imagine. As he turned to leave, the young woman reached out for Mark's arm, urgency radiating from her. This way. Mark and Mia exchanged glances, weighing their options. The cafe was no longer a safe haven, it was a stage for Richard's manipulation. Let us follow her. Mark said, instinctively pulling Mia up from her chair. We can't stay here. But as they rushed toward the exit, a loud crash erupted behind them. A barista had dropped a tray, coffee splattering across the floor. Heads turned, whispers peaked, and Richard's gaze sharpened, his attention suddenly shifting. In that moment of distraction, Mark grabbed the woman's hand, racing through the cafe's wooden doors with Mia close behind. The sun hit his skin as they emerged onto the sidewalk, but it felt like they were charging into a storm. Where do we go from here? Mia asked, the urgency in her eyes palpable. Just around the corner, the woman said, breathless. I have a place we can hide for now. Mark hesitated, glancing back at the cafe to see Richard standing at the entrance, his expression calculating, measuring their escape. Go. The woman insisted, her voice cutting through Mark's fear. With their hearts slamming against their ribs, they followed her into the unknown. What secrets awaited them? Would they find Leah or face an even greater threat? They ducked around the corner and sprinted down a narrow alleyway, the sounds of the bustling city fading behind them as they moved. Each step echoed in Mark's ears, mingling with the pounding of his heart. He couldn't shake the image of Richard's sinister grin from his mind. It lingered like a shadow, threatening to swallow them whole. Are we safe here? Mia whispered, her breath coming in quick gasps. Mark looked over at the woman guiding them. Her dark hair swung wildly as she glanced back, scanning the street. Not yet, she said, urgency lacing her tone. Just a little further. They reached a nondescript door at the end of the alley. The woman knocked swiftly, 3 sharp raps. Mark's chest tightened as he glanced back, half expecting Richard to appear at any moment. A moment later, the door creaked open revealing a middle-aged man with tired eyes, his brow furrowed with concern. What is going on? He asked, scanning their faces. We need to hide, the woman said, her voice trembling slightly. The man stepped aside, inviting them in. They hurried inside, and he closed the door behind them, blocking out the world. The room was dimly lit, the air filled with a mix of spices and old books. Mark's eyes assessed the sparse furniture and peeling wallpaper, but there was something oddly comforting about it. Sit, please, the man instructed, pointing to a faded couch. Mark and Mia sank into the cushions, the tension slowly unwinding from their bodies. The woman took a seat across from them, her hands resting in her lap, but her eyes darting around the room, trapped in her own storm. Who are you? Mark asked, the question spilling out, desperate for a sense of clarity amidst the chaos. My name is Sarah, she replied, her shoulders dropping slightly as she met his gaze. I used to work for Richard. I know how he operates. And I know about Leah. Mia leaned forward, her brow knitted in concern. You know where she is? Yes, but it's complicated, Sarah began, her voice thick with emotion. Richard doesn't just want to scare you. He wants to control everything around him. Leah's in a place he thinks he owns. She can't just come back, he won't allow it. Why now? Mark pressed, a storm of questions rising inside him. Why help us? I can't stand by while he manipulates lives. Leah deserves to be free, she said, determination shining in her eyes. If you want her back, you'll need to be smarter than him. What do we have to do? Mark's voice echoed with resolve, a newfound fire igniting within him. Sarah opened her mouth to reply when a sudden knock on the door sent chills down their spines. Their hearts raced in unison. I can't stay here long, she whispered urgently. If it's Richard, he may have people looking for you now. Mark stood, adrenaline coursing through him. What do we do? Follow my lead, Sarah instructed, her voice steady. We have to get to my contact. He can help you get Leah if we can get past Richard's men. They shared a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. Mark took Mia's hand, feeling the warmth of her grip bolstering his courage. They were in this together, and no one, not even Richard, could tear them apart. That knock, it could be anybody, Mia whispered, her eyes wide with fear. What if we can't back down now? Mark interrupted, the resolve in his voice stronger than ever. If there's even a chance to get Leah back, we have to take it. The knock came again, louder this time. Mark's heart raced as he felt the weight of the moment. Get ready, Sarah cautioned, stepping closer to the door. As the door creaked open, the last thing Mark expected was for a familiar figure to stand on the threshold, their face obscured by the dim light surrounding them. Please listen to me. I know what Richard is planning. Mark's heart stalled as the figure stepped into the dim room, the tangled shadows revealing a familiar face. It was David, the childhood friend he hadn't seen in years. The disbelief washed over him. How could he possibly be here now? David? Mark barely whispered, an emotional choke in his throat. He searched his friend's eyes for some reassurance that this was a good sign, but instead found panic etched across David's features. Mark, I'm so glad I found you. David's voice trembled, urgency saturating every word. I came as soon as I heard you were in trouble. You have to get out of here. Richard's men are everywhere. Is that why you're here? Mia asked sharply, her voice rising. To help us or lead them to us? No, no. David insisted, stepping further into the room, eyes darting nervously as if trying to anticipate the next threat. I found out about Richard's plans. He's about to make a big move. We need to leave now if you're going to save Leah. The tension wrapped around them like a vice. Mark felt the weight of David's words. They were not just about Leah's safety anymore, but also the lives they had yet to lose if they did not act fast. What do you know? Mark demanded, desperation creeping into his voice. Tell us everything. David took a deep breath, struggling to gather the racing thoughts in his mind. Richard's got a deal coming through tonight. He's meeting someone important, someone who thinks he can control Richard. If we can intercept that meeting, we might be able to find Leah and expose Richard. Then we have to go. Now. Sarah declared, bolting from the couch and heading toward the door, determination flowing from her every movement. Mark turned to Mia, searching for any sign of doubt, but instead saw a fire igniting in her eyes. She nodded, her hand gripping his tightly, and he knew they were in this together. As they slipped out of the shadows into the cool night air, Mark felt a sensation of time slipping away. The streets that had once felt so familiar now seemed laden with danger. The spark of hope he had felt just moments before flickered uncertainly. Where's the meeting? Sarah asked, leading the way. Just a few blocks from here, David replied. If we hurry, we can intercept it before it begins. They picked up speed, weaving through alleyways, their hearts synchronized in rhythm. Mark's mind raced. Thoughts of Leah, Richard's sinister watch over her, and what would happen if they failed looped endlessly, casting a heavy shadow over the urgency of their mission. "Do you really think we can do this?" Mia asked quietly as they dashed behind a row of parked cars, ducking under the light of a street lamp. "We have to," Mark said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "For Leah. For our peace." As they neared the location David had pointed out, a flicker of hope surged within him. They were going to fight back against the odds, but just as they turned a corner, the unmistakable sound of footsteps approached from behind. Mark spun around, adrenaline making his heart pound faster. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing Mia's hand and pulling her forward. They raced down the street, the ominous presence of Richard's men gaining on them. Mark felt the weight of the moment pressing down, acutely aware that this could be the end of the line or the beginning of their chance to free Leah from the clutches of darkness. "Where do we go?" Mia cried out, her voice strained with fear. "Anywhere but here," Mark shouted, glancing back, his breath quickening. As they plunged deeper into the night, the sounds behind them grew louder. The thrill of fear gripped him as they darted towards an unknown future, a future they desperately hoped would lead them to Leah. But in the chaos, one gnawing question lingered in the back of Mark's mind: what if they were too late? The night air felt electric as they raced through the city streets, the echoes of footsteps closing in behind them. Mark's heart hammered in his chest, a relentless reminder of the stakes. Every breath was a mixture of adrenaline and determination, an unwavering resolve to protect Mia and their hope of reaching Leah. "Over here!" David shouted, pointing to a narrow alleyway that snaked to the right. Without hesitation, Mark yanked Mia along, slipping into the shadows just as Richard's men rounded the corner behind them. They pressed against the cold brick wall, breathless and silent, every heartbeat amplified in the stillness. "Do you think they saw us?" Mia whispered, her voice barely a murmur. Mark peered around the corner cautiously. "I don't think so. We need to move. Fast." They sprinted down the alley, the world around them a blur of shadows, their minds focused only on one goal: saving Leah. As they burst into the next street, a sudden surge of blinding light caught their attention. A large van parked haphazardly at the curb was their sanctuary. "Get in," David urged, flinging the side door open. They scrambled into the back, and David slid in beside them, panting heavily. "I don't know how much longer we have. We need to get out of the open." Mark nodded, adrenaline fueling his next words. "We need to head to the meeting spot. Find out where Leah is." With no time to waste, David pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. As he spoke to the contact on the other end about their plan and position, Mark felt a weight in his gut, an urgency that soared above fear. Mia squeezed his hand. "Do you think we'll find her?" Mark met her eyes, and he saw the hope flickering there, a beacon that pushed him forward. "We will. We have to believe." Minutes later, the van lurched forward, the driver navigating the back streets with skill. The three of them sat in silence, processing the moments that had led them here. Richard's threats rang in Mark's ears, each taunt feeling weightier than the last. But they had something bigger to focus on now. Leah. As they approached the location where the meeting would unfold, David suddenly leaned forward, urgency painted across his features. "We're close, but we need to be careful. This is a high-stakes operation." Mark's heart quickened as they pulled into a clandestine parking lot hidden from view. David turned sharply. "We should wait for a signal before we move in." A tense silence enveloped them, anticipation humming through Mark's veins. He could feel Mia's hand trembling slightly in his grip, an anchor that steadied him through the storm of uncertainty. He leaned in closer, whispering, "Whatever happens next, we stick together." "Together," Mia echoed, her expression resolute. Moments stretched into what felt like hours, but finally, David's phone vibrated with a message. It was time. Their hearts raced as they made their way to the meeting spot, a dimly lit warehouse humming with a low buzz of conversation. Standing in the shadows, Mark spotted Richard, his confident posture radiating authority. It made Mark's blood boil. "Let us move now," David urged, leading them toward the side entrance. They carefully made their way inside, the musty air thick with tension. They crept along the wall, peering through a doorway to gain a better view. A group of men stood surrounding Richard, discussing business, the air heavy with threats and chaos. But then, in the midst of it all, Mark spotted her. Leah was there, her frail body illuminated by a shaft of light. She was cowering in a corner, the heartbreak of her situation sending a jolt through his heart. "Mia, look!" Mark gently grabbed her arm, eyeing her reaction. Mia gasped, tears brimming in her eyes. "Leah!" Richard's laughter boomed through the warehouse, shattering what little hope had built from their reunion. "You think you could take her from me? You're barking up the wrong tree." Mark felt a tidal wave of anger swell. "Not tonight, Richard." He stood taller, finding his voice amidst the chaos. He barged forward, and David and Mia followed closely behind. "Look who finally decided to show." Richard sneered, his eyes narrowing as he spotted them. "You will let her go?" Mark demanded, rising above the cacophony of laughter and scorn. Each word poured from him, resonating with a gravity he hadn't known he could possess. "You think fear gives you power, but all it does is breed resistance. We won't let you control her any longer." In a moment that felt suspended in time, Mark felt the surge of support from Mia and David, aligning behind him in selfless strength. They stepped forward, united and unyielding. "You can't keep her here." Mia's voice, though slightly quivering, held an undoubted resolve. Richard's smile faltered as he surveyed the room, uncertainty flickering behind his dark eyes. "You think you're a hero? You're just a nuisance." "Heroes come from all walks of life," Mark said, feeling the fire within him ignite. "And I'm not afraid of you any longer. Leah deserves to live in the light, not to be hidden away like a trophy." With every heartbeat, the tension in the room escalated, anticipation building into a dangerous crescendo. Richard stepped backward, frustration filtering into his sneer. "Enough games. If you want her, come and get her." In that moment, the atmosphere fractured. With a sudden wave of adrenaline, Mark surged forward, with Mia and David at his side. They rushed toward Leah, determination sweeping them forward. "No!" Richard shouted, his voice cutting through the warehouse as they approached Leah. Mark swept her up in his arms, feeling the frailness of her body against his. "You're safe now, Leah. We've got you. Run!" David urged, propelling them forward as shouts echoed behind them. Their hearts raced, feet pounding against the concrete floor. As they dashed toward the exit, Mark felt alive with determination. Hope surged through him as they breached the outside, the cold night air reinvigorating their spirits. Together, they sprinted toward safety, realizing they were breaking free from Richard's shackles. The world around them blurred as adrenaline propelled them forward, the wind whipping against their faces. In those breathless moments, as they raced into the unknown, Mark felt a sense of triumph rising within him. They had defied the odds, and together, they would forge a path toward a brighter future. Mia looked back, a radiant smile on her face that shone brighter than the city's skyline. "We did it. We really did it." Mark turned back, their eyes locking in a moment of understanding. Together, they would create a life of hope and healing, a family bound not by blood, but by unwavering love, and Mark knew in his heart this wasn't just a victory, it was the beginning. And as they vanished into the night, they left behind the darkness that once loomed over them, stepping forward into freedom with Leah in their arms and all the promise of tomorrow ahead. Now, if you felt that rush of hope, that surge of emotions like we did, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to never miss another incredible story, leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and help spread this message far and wide, comment below how this story made you feel and the transformation you witnessed, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You know friendships grow stronger through heartfelt moments just like these.